He couldn't breathe. The hospital corridor kept moving around him. Nurses, gurneys, distant alarms. But for him, everything had stopped. His fingers trembled. Not because of business. Not because of the violence he commanded. But because of that. Because of those eyes. The same ones he saw in the mirror every morning. Now they were on a face he never imagined existed. And the woman beside him, the one wearing his ring, had just realized that something inside him had broken. Something that couldn't be fixed with power, or money, or silence. He didn't know if he was a father, but he knew that from that moment on, he would never be the same man again. Kang Ji-won never hesitated. At 32, he commanded the Seoul Triad, with the same coldness he used to sign death contracts. His decisions were quick, definitive, lethal when necessary. But now, in the sterile corridor of Gangnam Elite Hospital, his feet wouldn't obey. His fiancée, Lee Seo-yeon, held his arm tightly. She wore an impeccable ivory dress, prepared for the charity dinner he had promised. The engagement ring, an 8-carat diamond, sparkled under the fluorescent light. She was saying something about her checkup, about the tests, about possibly moving up their honeymoon. But Ji-won heard nothing, because 20 meters ahead, near the pediatric ICU reception, stood Han Yuri, and she was destroyed. Her dark hair, once always pulled back in an elegant bun, fell disheveled over her shoulders. Her face, that face he used to kiss in the early mornings, was stained with tears and exhaustion. She wore a wrinkled cotton blouse, jeans torn at the knee, nothing like the woman he had known, and in her arms, wrapped in a light blue blanket, was a baby. Ji-won felt the ground shift. The baby wasn't crying. It was pale, too quiet. Yuri held the child as if it were the last thing keeping her alive, while desperately arguing with a nurse. "Please, he needs a doctor now." Yuri's voice was a muffled scream, hoarse from begging. "He's not breathing right, Ma'am, without insurance or advance payment, we cannot." "I'll pay," Yuri shouted, and her voice broke. "I promise I'll pay. Just save my son, please." Ji-won didn't notice when he stopped walking. Didn't notice when Seo-yeon released his arm. Didn't notice when his eyes fixed on that child's face. And then, for a fraction of a second, the baby opened its eyes. Dark brown, deep, identical to his. The world disappeared. Seo-yeon touched his shoulder. "Ji-won?" She tilted her head, following his gaze. Her voice dropped to ice. "Who is she?" He couldn't answer, because Yuri had just turned around. And when their eyes met across that white corridor, he saw something worse than hatred. He saw recognition. He saw confirmation. And he saw the exact moment she understood he had come with another woman. Yuri's face went blank. The tears stopped. Her jaw clenched. She turned back to the nurse, her voice now flat, mechanical. "Forget it. We'll go somewhere else. Ma'am, the baby needs immediate." I said forget it. Yuri adjusted the child in her arms and started walking toward the exit. And that's when Ji-won's body finally moved. "Wait." His voice cut through the corridor like a blade. Yuri froze. Seo-yeon's nails dug into his jacket. "Ji-won, what are you—" "Wait here," he said without looking at his fiancée. "Excuse me." But he was already walking. Toward the woman he had abandoned a year ago. Toward the baby with his eyes. Yuri didn't turn around. She stood there, back rigid, the baby's small head resting against her collarbone. Ji-won could see her shoulders rising and falling too fast, like she was fighting to breathe. He stopped 3 steps behind her. "Yuri, don't." Her voice was a whisper, sharp, final. "The baby is none of your business." The words hit him like a physical blow. Ji-won's jaw tightened. He took another step. "If he's sick, I can—" "You can what, Ji-won?" Yuri spun around and her eyes were volcanic. "Pay for it? Fix it with your money? Make it disappear like you made me disappear?" The baby stirred against her, whimpering softly. Yuri immediately softened, bouncing him gently, whispering something in his ear. The shift was instant, maternal, devastating. Ji-won had never seen her like this. "How old is he?" he asked quietly. Yuri's laugh was bitter. 6 months. The math crashed into him. 6 months. He had left her exactly 1 year and 3 months ago, which meant, is he mine? The question hung in the air like poison. Yuri looked at him for a long, cruel moment. Then she smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Does it matter?" "Yes." "Why?" She stepped closer, and her voice dropped to something venomous. "So you can add him to your collection? Another thing you own? Another life you control? That's not— You left me, Ji-won." Her voice cracked, and she hated herself for it. "You left me without a word, without a reason. You just vanished. And now you show up here with her, wearing that, and you think you have the right to ask me anything?" Jiwon's hands curled into fists. I had my reasons. I'm sure you did. Yuri's eyes glistened. You always do. The baby started crying. Yuri immediately turned her attention back to him, rocking him, humming something soft. But Jiwon could see it, the tremor in her hands, the exhaustion etched into every line of her face. She was breaking. Let me pay for the treatment, he said. No, Yuri, I don't want your money. She looked at him, and her voice was steel. I don't want anything from you. He's dying. Jiwon's voice rose, and he didn't care. Whatever you think of me, whatever I did, he doesn't deserve. Don't you dare. Yuri's eyes flashed. Don't you dare act like you care about him now. You don't get to play savior. I'm not playing anything. Then what are you doing, Jiwon? She stepped forward, and the baby's cries grew louder. What do you want? He didn't have an answer, because he didn't know. All he knew was that those eyes, those damn eyes, had ripped something open inside him that he thought he'd buried. Behind him, heels clicked against the tile floor. Seoyeon's voice was glacial. Jiwon, we're leaving. Yuri's gaze flicked past him to the woman in ivory. Her expression went cold. Yes, she said softly. You should. She turned and walked toward the exit, and this time, Jiwon let her go. The car ride was silent. Seoyeon sat beside him in the back of the Mercedes, staring out the window. Her driver navigated through Seoul's nighttime traffic with practiced efficiency. Jiwon's phone buzzed 3 times. He ignored it. That was her, wasn't it? Seoyeon's voice was calm. Too calm. Jiwon didn't answer. The one you never talk about. The reason you were different. A year ago. His jaw clenched. Seoyeon finally turned to look at him. Is the baby yours? I don't know, but you think it is. Silence. Seoyeon leaned back, a bitter smile playing at her lips. You know what's funny? She turned the engagement ring on her finger slowly. I always knew there was someone. I just thought you'd gotten over her. Seoyeon, no, it's fine. She held up a hand. I'm not stupid, Jiwon. I knew what I was getting into when I agreed to marry you. Business, alliance, mutual benefit. Her voice hardened. But that baby complicates things. Jiwon looked at her. What are you saying? I'm saying, Seoyeon met his eyes, that if that child is yours, it's a liability. For both of us. Something cold settled in Jiwon's chest. He's a baby. He's leverage. Seoyeon's voice was matter of fact. Your enemies will use him. Your rivals will use him. And that woman, she'll use him too, whether she means to or not. She's not like that. Everyone is like that when they're desperate enough. Seoyeon tilted her head, and she looked very desperate. The car stopped at a red light. Jiwon stared out at the neon-soaked streets, his reflection ghostly in the window. What do you suggest? Seoyeon was quiet for a moment. Then, find out if he's yours. If he is, we handle it. Quietly. We make sure she has what she needs. We make sure the baby is taken care of, and we make sure no one ever connects him to you. You want me to hide him? I want you to protect him. Seoyeon's voice softened, but her eyes remained sharp. Because if you don't, someone else will find him, and they won't be as kind. Jiwon's phone buzzed again. This time he looked. It was a message from one of his men. 4 words. Hospital security footage acquired. And below it, a photo. Yuri, standing outside the hospital with the baby, getting into a rusted car that looked like it might fall apart, driving away into the night. Alone. Jiwon's thumb hovered over the screen. He could order someone to follow her, to watch her, to make sure she and the baby were safe, or he could do what he'd done a year ago. Walk away. Pretend he never saw those eyes. Seoyeon watched him, reading his face like a book. You're going to see her again, aren't you? Jiwon closed his eyes. I don't know. But he did. He knew the moment he saw that baby's face. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. And whatever came next would fracture everything he'd built. His empire. His engagement. Himself. The light turned green. The car moved forward. And Jiwon made a decision that would destroy them all. The neon signs of Hongdae blurred past the tinted windows of Jiwon's car. It was 2 a.m. He hadn't gone home. Instead, he'd sent Seoyeon back with the driver and taken one of his unmarked vehicles, a black sedan that could disappear into Seoul's traffic like a ghost. His phone sat on the passenger seat, the screen still displaying that photograph. Yuri, the baby, the rusted car, gone, but not untraceable. Jiwon had spent the last 3 hours doing something he hadn't done in years. Fieldwork. He'd tracked Yuri's license plate through traffic cameras, cross-referenced her last known address, and called in favors from contacts he kept specifically for situations that required discretion. What he found made his chest tighten. She was living in Guryong village, the last remaining slum in Gangnam, a place where Seoul's wealthiest district bordered its most desperate poverty, separated only by a highway and the willful ignorance of the rich. Jiwon knew Guryong. He'd grown up 3 kilometers from there, in conditions not much better. He'd clawed his way out with blood and ruthlessness, swearing he'd never look back. And now the woman he'd loved was living in the exact hell he'd escaped, because of him. The thought was a knife between his ribs. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Arrived at target location, awaiting instructions. Jiwon had sent Min-ho, one of his most trusted men, someone who'd been with him since the beginning, to watch Yuri's building, not to approach, not to interfere, just to watch, to make sure she was safe. Jiwon typed back, "Any movement?" Min-ho, "Negative. Lights went off 20 minutes ago. No visitors. Building is." "Sir, are you sure this is the right address?" Jiwon, "Yes." Min-ho, "Understood. We'll maintain position." Jiwon set the phone down and closed his eyes. He could still see it, the way Yuri had looked at him in that hospital corridor. Not with the soft eyes he remembered from their mornings together, when she'd trace patterns on his chest and ask him about his childhood. Not with the fierce determination she'd shown when she'd defended him to her family, insisting he was more than the rumors said. No, she'd looked at him like he was a stranger, like he was the enemy, and maybe he was. 1 year and 3 months ago. The memory came without permission. They were in his apartment, the penthouse overlooking the Han River, back when he still allowed himself to have a home instead of just safe houses. Yuri was curled up on the sofa, wearing one of his shirts, her hair still damp from the shower. She was reading a book on art history, something about Renaissance painters. Jiwon had been working on his laptop, reviewing acquisition contracts for a shipping company that was a front for his weapons distribution network. "Jiwon?" Her voice had been soft. "Do you ever think about leaving?" He'd looked up. "Leaving what?" "This." She'd gestured vaguely. "All of it. The business, the danger, the always looking over your shoulder." Jiwon had closed his laptop. "Where would I go?" "I don't know." She'd smiled, and it had been so genuine it hurt. "Somewhere quiet. Maybe a small town by the sea. You could open a restaurant or something." "A restaurant?" He'd laughed. "Yuri, I don't cook. I'd teach you." She'd set down her book and crawled across the sofa to him. "We could have a normal life. Wake up without wondering if today's the day someone tries to kill you. Have dinner without your phone buzzing every 5 minutes with emergencies." She'd cupped his face in her hands. "We could be happy." And Jiwon had wanted to believe her. He'd pulled her into his lap, buried his face in her neck, and for just a moment, allowed himself to imagine it. A life where he wasn't Kang Jiwon, head of the Seoul Triad, just Jiwon, someone's husband. Maybe someday someone's father, someone who slept through the night without a gun under his pillow. "Okay," he'd whispered against her skin. "Okay?" She'd pulled back, eyes wide. "Okay what?" "Let's do it." He'd meant it in that moment. "Give me 6 months to arrange things, to hand off the business to someone I trust, and then we'll go. Anywhere you want." Yuri had kissed him like the world was ending, and 3 weeks later, she'd been gone. Not by her choice, by his. Present. Jiwon opened his eyes. The memory dissolved, but the guilt remained, thick and choking. He'd lied to her, not about wanting to leave. That part had been real, terrifyingly real. But he'd underestimated how thoroughly the life had its claws in him. 6 months had turned into 6 days before everything fell apart. The Park Syndicate, one of the Seoul Triad's oldest rivals, had discovered Yuri's existence. They'd sent him photographs. Yuri leaving her apartment. Yuri at the university where she worked as an adjunct professor. Yuri at a cafe, laughing with friends. Each photo had come with a message. Beautiful. It would be a shame if something happened to her. Jiwon had 2 choices. End the relationship and remove her from his world completely, or watch her become a target for every enemy he'd ever made. He'd chosen the first option, but he'd been too much of a coward to tell her the truth. So he'd simply vanished, changed his number, moved apartments, had his men turn her away every time she came looking for him. For 2 months she'd tried, and then she'd stopped. Jiwon had told himself it was better this way, that she'd moved on, found someone normal, someone safe. He'd even started the arrangement with Seo-yeon 3 months later, a marriage of convenience that would solidify his alliance with the Lee family and their political connections. He'd convinced himself he'd done the right thing, until tonight, until he saw what his right thing had cost her. His phone buzzed again. "Min-ho. Sir, you need to see this." A photo loaded. It was taken through a ground floor window of Yuri's building. The room inside was barely larger than a closet. A single mattress on the floor. A small electric burner, plastic bags of what looked like clothes hanging from nails in the wall, and in the corner, a makeshift crib made from a cardboard box lined with blankets. Empty, because Yuri was lying on the mattress, the baby against her chest, both of them still fully clothed. She'd fallen asleep like that, too exhausted to even change. Jiwon's hand tightened around the phone until the edges cut into his palm. Jiwon, get me building schematics. I want to know every entrance and exit. Minho. Sir? Jiwon. And find out who owns this building. I want a full background by morning. Minho. Are we moving on her? Jiwon. No. We're buying the building. A pause. Minho. The entire building? Jiwon. The entire block if necessary. And I want it done quietly. No trail back to me. Use the shell companies in Hong Kong. Minho. Understood. Should I arrange for her to be relocated? Jiwon thought about it. How easy it would be to just fix this. Move her into a safe apartment. Make sure she had money, security, medical care for the baby. All without her knowing it came from him. Clean. Simple. Efficient. But he'd learned a long time ago that easy solutions to complicated problems never stayed solved. Jiwon. No. Just secure the building and make sure nothing happens to her. I'll handle the rest myself. Minho. Yes, sir. Jiwon ended the call and stared out at the city. Seoul sprawled before him. Neon and glass and endless ambition. He owned pieces of it. Legitimate businesses, shadow operations, politicians, judges, police captains. He could disappear people with a phone call, end careers with a word, but he couldn't fix what he'd broken. Not with money, not with power, only with the truth, and the truth would destroy everything. Jiwon didn't sleep that night. He drove back to his current residence, a fortified apartment in Cheongdam-dong that was more bunker than home, and spent the hours until dawn, reviewing everything his intelligence network had on Yuri's life over the past year. What he found was a chronicle of systematic collapse. 2 weeks after he left, Yuri had filed a missing person report. The police had dismissed it when they learned who Jiwon was. No one wanted to investigate the head of the Seoul Triad for a domestic dispute. 1 month after, she'd been let go from her position at the university. No official reason given, but Jiwon knew. The Park Syndicate had contacts there. They'd made sure she lost everything. 2 months after, eviction notice from her apartment. Landlord had suddenly decided to renovate the building. Every other tenant was allowed to stay. 4 months after, first appearance in public records as a resident of Guryong Village. Rent, 200,000 won per month for a single room with shared bathroom facilities. 6 months after, birth certificate issued for Han Yuri's son. Father's name, blank. The baby's name, Han Minho. Jiwon stared at that name for a long time. Minho. Not a family name. Not meaningful in any obvious way. Just Minho. His investigator's notes included a detail that made Jiwon's throat tight. Hospital records indicate patient Han Yuri gave birth alone. No family present. No partner listed. Delivery complicated by preeclampsia. Emergency C-section performed. Patient discharged 48 hours later. AMA. Against medical advice. Due to inability to pay extended stay fees. She'd almost died having that baby. Alone. While Jiwon was finalizing his engagement to Seoyeon. The file continued. Present day. Yuri worked 3 jobs. Morning shift at a convenience store in Gangnam. Afternoon shift doing data entry remotely. Night shift cleaning office buildings. She slept an average of 4 hours per night. She had no savings. Her most recent bank transaction. Withdrawal of 50,000 won to buy infant formula and diapers. Current balance. 13,421. About $12. The baby, Minho, had been seen by a doctor exactly twice since birth, both times at free clinics. Current diagnosis. Severe respiratory infection requiring immediate treatment and possible hospitalization. Estimated cost, 5,000 won minimum. She didn't have it. She'd never have it. Not working 3 jobs in Guryong Village. Not in a year. Not in 5 years. The baby would die without treatment. Jiwon closed the file. His hands were shaking. Outside, dawn was breaking over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that looked obscene against what he'd just read. His phone rang. Seoyeon. He didn't answer. It rang again, and again. Finally, he picked up. Where are you? Her voice was clipped. You didn't come home. I had things to handle. Things. A bitter laugh. Is that what we're calling her now? Jiwon's jaw clenched. Seoyeon. My father called. He wants to move up the wedding. Next month instead of next spring. Why? Because rumors are already starting. Her voice was cold. Someone at the hospital recognized you. Saw you talking to that woman with the baby. By morning it'll be everywhere. I'll handle it. How? Seoyeon's voice rose. By pretending she doesn't exist? By paying her off? By what, Jiwon? I don't know yet. Silence. Then quieter. You're in love with her. It wasn't a question. Jiwon leaned back against the window, closing his eyes. It doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Seoyeon's voice cracked. You're marrying me in 4 weeks, and you're in love with someone else. How does that not matter? Because love doesn't change reality. The words tasted like ash. I made commitments. To you. To your family. To the alliance our marriage represents. And to her? Soyeon asked softly. What commitment did you make to her? Jiwon thought about that night on the sofa. Okay, let's do it. Give me 6 months. 1 I couldn't keep, he said finally. Soyeon was quiet for a long moment. Then, if you want to break our engagement, do it now. Before my father moves forward with the announcements. Before I become the woman who wasn't enough. That's not... Don't. Her voice was steel. Don't insult me by pretending this is about anything other than what it is. You have a choice to make, Jiwon. Me and everything our families have built. Or her, and whatever fantasy you think you can have. It's not a fantasy. There's a child. You don't even know if it's yours. He has my eyes. The words exploded out of him. Seoyeon went silent. Jiwon's breathing was ragged. I saw him, he said quietly, for maybe 10 seconds, and I knew. I don't need a test. I don't need proof. I looked at that baby and I knew. Then what are you still doing on the phone with me? Seoyeon's voice was empty. Go to her. Claim your son. Play house in whatever hovel she's living in. See how long it takes before your enemies find them and use them to destroy you. Seoyeon. 4 weeks, Jiwon. The line went dead. Jiwon stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, watching the sun rise over a city that suddenly felt like a trap. By noon, Jiwon had made his decision. He drove to Guryong village. In daylight, it was worse than he'd imagined. Ramshackle buildings held together with rust and hope. Narrow alleys that smelled of sewage and desperation. Children playing in dirt lots, their laughter incongruous against the decay. Jiwon's car, even the unmarked sedan, drew stares. He parked 3 blocks away and walked. Minho had texted him the exact address. Building 7, Room 2B. Jiwon found it on the 2nd floor of a structure that should have been condemned decades ago. The stairs creaked ominously under his weight. Water damage bloomed across the walls like disease. He stood outside 2B for a full minute, hand raised to knock. Behind the door, he could hear it. Crying. Not the baby. Yuri. Gut-wrenching sobs that sounded like they were being torn from her chest. Jiwon's hand fell. He should leave. Come back later. Give her privacy. But then he heard her voice. Broken and desperate. I'm sorry. She was talking to the baby. I'm so sorry, baby. Mommy's trying. I'm trying so hard. Please please hang on. Please. The baby's cries were weak, congested, dying. Jiwon knocked. The crying stopped. Footsteps. Hesitant. Who is it? Yuri's voice was wrecked. It's me. Silence. Then, go away. Yuri, please. I said go away. Her voice cracked. I don't want your help. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you. He needs a doctor. You think I don't know that? The door rattled like she'd hit it. You think I don't know my son is dying? You think I haven't been trying everything? Her voice broke into sobs again. Jiwon pressed his forehead against the door. Let me help. Why? The word was anguished. Why now? Why not a year ago when I was begging you to tell me what I did wrong? Why not 6 months ago when I was in labor, alone, thinking I was going to die without ever knowing why you left? Each word was a blade. Because I was wrong, Jiwon said. I was wrong about everything. That doesn't fix anything. I know. Then why are you here? Jiwon closed his eyes. Because he's mine, isn't he? The silence stretched so long Jiwon thought she'd left. Then, so quiet he almost missed it. Yes. The word destroyed him. Let me help, he said again. Please, not for me. Not for us. For him. Another long silence. Then the lock turned. The door opened. And Jiwon saw what his choices had created. Yuri looked like a ghost. Her face was hollow. Cheekbones too prominent. Dark circles carved deep beneath eyes that were red and swollen from crying. She'd lost weight. Dangerous amounts of it. Her clothes hung on her frame like they belonged to someone else. But it was her eyes that gutted him. They were empty. Not angry. Not hurt. Just vacant. Like she'd used up every emotion she had, and there was nothing left. 2 minutes, she said. Then you leave. Jiwon stepped into the room. It was worse than the photograph. The space couldn't have been more than 80 square feet. A thin mattress on the floor. one corner blackened with mold, a hot plate balanced on an overturned crate, plastic bags of clothes, a single window covered with newspaper for privacy, and in the corner, that cardboard box crib. Inside it, wrapped in a blanket that had clearly been washed so many times it was more holes than fabric, was Minho. He was so small, smaller than Jiwon had expected. His breathing was labored, each inhale a visible effort. His skin had a gray tinge that Jiwon recognized from too many deaths he'd witnessed. This baby was dying. How long has he been like this? Jiwon's voice came out strangled. 4 days. Yuri stood with her arms wrapped around herself, defensive. It started as a cough, then fever. Then he stopped eating. Why didn't you take him to the hospital? She laughed. It was a horrible sound. With what money, Jiwon? She gestured at the room. This is what I have. This room that costs everything I make just to keep. I work 16 hours a day and I still can't afford to feed both of us properly. You think I have hospital money? You could have what? Her voice rose. Called you? The man who blocked my number and had his men physically remove me from his building when I tried to find him? The man who disappeared like I meant nothing? You meant everything. Then why? She screamed it, and the baby stirred, whimpering. Yuri immediately softened, going to him, picking him up with the careful desperation of someone who knows they're running out of time. Why did you leave me? Jiwon watched her rock Minho, humming something soft and broken. This was the moment. Tell her the truth or maintain the lie. There were threats, he said finally. Against you. From my enemies. They found out about us. Yuri's hands stilled. What kind of threats? The kind that don't stay threats. Jiwon's jaw clenched. The park syndicate sent me photographs. You leaving your apartment, at work, at cafes. They made it clear that being with me made you a target. Yuri turned to look at him, and something flickered in those dead eyes. So you just left? Without telling me? Without giving me a choice? What choice was there? Jiwon's voice was harsh. Let you stay with me and watch them hurt you to get to me? Or let you go and know you'd be safe? Safe? Yuri's laugh was bitter. You think this is safe? You think losing my job, my apartment, everything I had was safe? That wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. She stepped toward him. Minho clutched against her chest. It did happen, Jiwon. Because you didn't just leave me. You destroyed everything I built. Every connection I had. Every opportunity. Everything just disappeared. Like I was being punished. Jiwon's blood ran cold. What do you mean? I mean your enemies didn't just threaten me. Yuri's voice shook. They systematically dismantled my life. My job? Gone because someone made a call. My apartment? Landlord suddenly had mob connections who wanted me out. Every job I applied for. Every place I tried to live. Doors closed in my face. She set Minho back in the crib, her movements mechanical. I figured it out eventually, she continued. That being with you didn't just make me a target while we were together. It made me a permanent one. Because leaving you didn't make me safe. It just made me vulnerable. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Jiwon had left to protect her, but the park syndicate had interpreted it differently. Not as protection, as abandonment, which made Yuri worthless as leverage but perfect as punishment. A message to Jiwon. This is what happens to people you care about. I didn't know, he said. Would it have mattered? Yes. Really? Yuri turned to face him fully. Because from where I'm standing, you made a choice. You decided I couldn't handle your world. You decided I was better off without you. You decided my life for me. I was trying to keep you alive, and I was trying to keep us alive. She touched her stomach, and Jiwon realized she was indicating the pregnancy. I found out 2 weeks after you left. 2 weeks, Jiwon. I was pregnant with your child, and you were already gone. The air left his lungs. Why didn't you tell me? How? Her voice cracked. You changed your number. You moved. Your men wouldn't let me anywhere near you. I tried for 2 months straight, and every door slammed in my face. She sank onto the mattress, suddenly looking boneless. So I gave up, she said quietly. I figured if you wanted nothing to do with me, you'd want even less to do with a baby. And I thought, maybe I could do it alone. Women do it all the time, right? I'd just work hard, save money, find a way. Tears slipped down her cheeks. But I didn't know how hard it would be, how expensive, how every system is designed for people with money, with family, with support. I didn't know I'd end up here, in this room, watching my son die because I can't afford to save him. She looked at Jiwon, and her eyes were full of something worse than hate, defeat. So why are you here now? She asked. Guilt? Obligation? Because you finally got curious about whether the baby was yours. Jiwon moved. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees in front of her, and took her hands in his. They were freezing. "I'm here because I never stopped loving you," he said. "I'm here because I made the biggest mistake of my life when I left. I'm here because that's my son, and he deserves better than this. You deserve better than this." Yuri's breath hitched. "Don't." She tried to pull her hands away. "Don't say things you don't mean." "I mean every word. You're engaged to someone else. I'll end it. Your enemies will still target us. Then I'll eliminate them." His voice was steel. "All of them, starting with Park." Yuri stared at him. "You'd start a war. I'd end the world if it kept you safe. That's insane." "Yes." Jiwon's grip tightened. "It is. But it's also true." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Minho coughed. It was a wet, rattling sound that made both of them freeze. Yuri immediately pulled her hands free and went to him, lifting him out of the crib. His breathing was worse. Shallow, strained. "We need to get him to a hospital," Jiwon said, standing. "Now. I can't afford—" "I can." He was already pulling out his phone. "I'll call ahead. Have everything prepared. Money doesn't matter. Just grab what you need." Yuri hesitated. "If I do this," she said slowly, "if I let you help. This isn't forgiveness. This isn't us getting back together. This is just about him." It hurt, but Jiwon nodded. "Understood. And afterward you leave us alone. You can pay for the medical care, fine. But then you disappear again. We don't need you in our lives." Each word was a knife, but looking at Minho's gray face, Jiwon would agree to anything. "Whatever you want." Yuri gathered the baby, wrapping him more securely. "Okay," she said. "Let's go." The drive to Seoul National University Hospital took 15 minutes. Jiwon made 6 phone calls during that time. By the time they arrived, a full pediatric team was waiting at the emergency entrance with a gurney and respiratory equipment. Yuri clutched Minho as doctors and nurses swarmed them, asking rapid-fire questions about symptoms, duration, medical history. "He's 6 months old. Started with a cough 4 days ago. Fever peaked at 39. 5 yesterday. Hasn't eaten in 12 hours. Breathing has been deteriorating." The head pediatrician, Dr. Shin, took Minho gently from Yuri's arms. "We've got him," she said. "You did the right thing bringing him in. Is he going to be okay?" Yuri's voice was small. Dr. Shin's expression was carefully neutral. "We'll do everything we can. But I won't lie to you. His oxygen saturation is critically low. We need to intubate immediately and get him stabilized before we can assess the full extent of the infection." "Intubate?" Yuri's face went white. "You mean put a tube in his—" "It's necessary to ensure his airway stays open." Dr. Shin was already moving toward the examination room. "We need to move fast. Are you the mother?" "Yes." "And you, sir?" Jiwon met Dr. Shin's eyes. "I'm the father." Yuri didn't correct him. Dr. Shin nodded. "There's paperwork in the waiting room. Financial services will need—" "Whatever it costs," Jiwon said. "Just save him. We'll do our best." They wheeled Minho away. Yuri stood frozen in the corridor, staring at the doors they'd disappeared through. Jiwon touched her shoulder gently. "He's in good hands." "He looked so small," Yuri whispered. "On that gurney. He's always been small, but he looked so fragile. He's strong. He has your strength." Yuri turned to him, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm not strong. I'm barely holding on. You've been doing this alone for 6 months." Jiwon's voice was fierce. "Working 3 jobs, keeping him alive, fighting every day. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." A tear escaped, then another, and then Yuri was crying, silent sobs that shook her whole body. Jiwon did the only thing he could think of. He pulled her into his arms. For a second, she resisted. Then she collapsed against him, hands fisting in his jacket, and let herself break. "I'm so tired," she sobbed into his chest. "I'm so tired of fighting. I'm so tired of failing. I'm so tired of—" "I know." He held her tighter. "I know. But you're not alone anymore. I'm here. I'm not leaving again. You said you'd leave after—" "I lied." Jiwon pressed his lips to the top of her head. "I'm not capable of leaving you again. Not now. Not ever." Yuri cried harder, and Jiwon stood there in that sterile corridor, holding the woman he'd destroyed, praying to a god he didn't believe in that he'd get the chance to fix even a fraction of what he'd broken. 3 hours later, Dr. Shin emerged from the ICU. Jiwon and Yuri both stood immediately. "He's stable," Dr. Shin said, and Yuri's knees buckled. Jiwon caught her. "Stable?" Yuri's voice was hoarse. "He's okay?" "He's not out of danger yet," Dr. Shin cautioned. "The infection is severe. Bacterial pneumonia complicated by respiratory syncytial virus. We have him on IV antibiotics and a ventilator. The The next 48 hours are critical. But he'll survive? Jiwon asked. If he responds to treatment, yes. But we need to monitor him closely. Can I see him? Yuri asked, briefly, and only one visitor at a time in the ICU. Yuri looked at Jiwon. You should go, he said. He needs his mother. Something soft flickered across her face. Then she was gone, following Dr. Shin through the ICU doors. Jiwon sank into a waiting room chair, suddenly exhausted. His phone had been buzzing non-stop. 14 missed calls from Seoyeon, 7 from her father, 23 messages from various business associates and allies, all asking the same thing. What the hell are you doing at a hospital with another woman and her baby? The rumors had already started. By tomorrow, everyone would know. His engagement would be over. The alliance with the Lee family would crumble. His standing in the organization would be questioned. Enemies would see weakness. Everything he'd built would start to crack. And looking at those ICU doors, knowing Yuri was on the other side holding their son, Jiwon found he didn't care. Let it all burn. He'd build something better from the ashes. Yuri stayed in the ICU for 20 minutes before Dr. Shin gently escorted her out. She looked different when she emerged. Still exhausted. Still terrified. But something had shifted in her eyes. Hope. Fragile and tentative, but there. He's breathing on his own, she said, sitting beside Jiwon. They're still using the ventilator to help. But Dr. Shin said his oxygen levels are improving. That's good. Yeah. Yuri wiped at her eyes. He's so tiny in that bed, with all those tubes and wires. But his heartbeat on the monitor, it's steady, strong. Jiwon wanted to go in, to see his son with his own eyes. But he'd given Yuri that time first. You should eat something, he said instead. Yuri shook her head. I'm not hungry. When was the last time you ate? She thought about it. Yesterday morning, I think. Toast. Jiwon stood. There's a cafeteria on the second floor. I'm getting you food. Jiwon, I'm fine. You're not fine. His voice was gentle, but firm. You're running on empty, and Minho needs you to stay strong. So you're going to eat, you're going to rest, and you're going to let me help. Yuri looked like she wanted to argue, but she was too tired. Okay, she said quietly. Jiwon went to the cafeteria and returned 15 minutes later with soup, rice, banchan, and hot tea. Yuri picked at it initially. Then hunger took over and she ate like she was starving, which Jiwon realized. She probably was. When we leave here, he said carefully, you're not going back to Guryong. Yuri's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. Where else would I go? I have an apartment in Hanamdong, 3 bedrooms, full security, near the hospital in case Minho needs follow-up care. I can't. It's empty, Jiwon continued. I don't use it. You'd have complete privacy. No rent, no obligations. Jiwon, before you say no, he met her eyes. Think about Minho. Think about what's better for him. That room in Guryong or a clean, safe apartment with heat and running water and a real bed. Yuri set down her spoon. This feels like a trap. It's not. Then what is it? A father making sure his son has what he needs. Yuri was quiet for a long time. If I agree, she said finally, I'm still paying you back. Every one. Once I'm back on my feet, I'll pay back the medical bills, the apartment, all of it. Yuri, that's my condition. Her chin lifted. I'm not your charity case. I'm not your kept woman. I'll accept help for Minho's sake, but I'm paying it back. Pride. Even broken and exhausted, she had so much pride. Jiwon wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she didn't owe him anything, but he knew that look. Okay, he said. We'll draw up a contract. Official terms, payment plan, whatever makes you comfortable. Yuri relaxed slightly. Okay. They sat in silence for a while, Yuri finishing her meal. Then, can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Your fiancé. Yuri's voice was carefully neutral. You said you'd end it. Did you mean that? Jiwon pulled out his phone. He scrolled to Seoyeon's contact, typed out a message. I can't marry you. I'm sorry. Showed it to Yuri. Do you want me to send it? Yuri stared at the screen. That'll ruin everything for you, won't it? The alliance? The business? All your plans? Yes. And you'd do it anyway? Jiwon's thumb hovered over the send button. For you and Minho? Yes. Yuri's breath hitched. Why? Because a year ago I chose wrong. I chose what I thought was duty over what I knew was love. He looked at her. I'm not making that mistake again. Yuri's eyes filled with tears. I don't trust you, she whispered. I want to, but I don't. I know, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you. I know that too. So why? Because whether you trust me or not, whether you forgive me or not, I'm still Minho's father. Jiwon's voice was steady. And I'm still in love with you. Those facts don't change. A tear slipped down Yuri's cheek. Don't say that. It's true. It doesn't matter if it's true. Her voice broke. True doesn't fix broken. True doesn't erase a year of hell. True doesn't... Jiwon's phone rang. Not Seo-yeon. Minho. Jiwon answered. Sir. Minho's voice was urgent. We have a situation. Park Syndicate just hit 3 of our warehouses in Incheon. Simultaneous strikes. They're making a move. Jiwon's blood went cold. Casualties? 12 wounded. 3 dead. They left a message. What message? Nice hospital you're at. Be a shame if something happened. Jiwon was on his feet. Where are they? We don't know yet. But sir, they know about the woman and the baby. They know you're there. Yuri stood too, reading his expression. What's wrong? Jiwon made a decision in a split second. Minho, I want full detail at the hospital. 20 men minimum. Snipers on the roof. Lock down every entrance. No one gets in or out without clearance. Yes, sir. ETA 15 minutes. Make it 10. He ended the call. Yuri's face had gone pale. They're coming here? Her voice was barely a whisper. Your enemies are coming here. No. Jiwon's voice was hard. Because I'm going to them first. What? Park wants a war. He was already texting orders to 3 different teams. Fine. He'll get one. But it ends tonight. Jiwon, you can't. I can. And I will. He looked at her. Because as long as Park breathes, you and Minho are targets. The only way to keep you safe is to eliminate the threat. That's insane. That's my world. His eyes were cold now. The soft man from moments ago was gone, replaced by something harder. Lethal. This is what I do, Yuri. This is who I am. Yuri stared at him, and for the first time, she saw it fully. Not the man she'd loved, the monster he'd become to survive. If you do this, she said slowly, if you start this war, there's no going back. I know. People will die. Yes, you might die. Jiwon stepped closer. If I die, Minho has instructions to make sure you and Minho are set up for life. Apartment, money, security, everything. You'll be safe. I don't want your money if you're dead. Then what do you want? The question hung between them. Yuri's hands trembled. I want, her voice cracked. I want you to stop being this person. I want you to walk away from all of it. I want us to leave, like we talked about. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe. You know I can't. Why not? Because they won't let me. Jiwon's voice rose. You think I can just resign? Retire? They'll see it as weakness. They'll come after me. After you. After Minho. The only way out is to be strong enough that no one dares touch what's mine. So you kill Park. Then what? Someone else takes his place. Then you kill them. And on until everyone knows what happens when they threaten my family. His voice was stone. Yes. Yuri stepped back. This is why I can't be with you, she said. This right here. You say you love me, but you love this more. The power. The violence. The control. That's not fair, isn't it? Tears streamed down her face. You're choosing to start a war instead of choosing us. You're choosing revenge over... I'm choosing your survival. Jiwon's shout echoed through the waiting room. Every choice I make, every person I hurt, every line I cross, it's all to keep you alive. Don't you understand that? Then stop, Yuri sobbed. Just stop. Leave the organization. Walk away. We'll disappear. Change our names. Go somewhere they can't find us. There is nowhere they can't find us. Then we'll keep running. And Minho? Jiwon's voice went quiet. You want to raise him like that? Always looking over our shoulders? Never staying anywhere long enough to have a life? Yuri had no answer, because he was right. And she hated that he was right. Jiwon's phone buzzed. Minho. Team in position. Building secure. Jiwon looked at Yuri. I have to go. No, you don't. Yes, I do. He touched her face gently. But I'll come back, I promise. You promised before. The words were a knife. Jiwon leaned in and pressed his forehead to hers. This time is different, he whispered. This time I have something worth coming back to. He kissed her. Soft, brief, desperate. Yuri didn't kiss back, but she didn't pull away either. When Jiwon stepped back, his eyes were dark. If anything happens to me, he said, Minho will take care of everything. Trust him. Jiwon, I love you. He said it like an oath. I love you, and I love our son, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you both safe. Then he was gone. Walking toward the elevator with the purposeful stride of a man going to war, Yuri stood there, shaking. 10 minutes later, she heard it. Distant, but unmistakable. Gunfire. The aftermath. Yuri sat in the ICU waiting room, staring at her hands. They were still trembling. Outside, Seoul had erupted. Not literally, at least not yet, but the news was already reporting gang violence in Gangnam. Multiple casualties, buildings on fire, police mobilizing, and somewhere in that chaos, Ji-won was fighting, killing, for her. Yuri didn't know how to feel about that. Hours passed. Dr. Shin came by to update her on Minho. He's stable, responding well to treatment. If this continues, we can likely move him out of intensive care by tomorrow afternoon. Thank you, Yuri said numbly. Are you all right? You look... I'm fine. She wasn't fine. She was sitting in a hospital, waiting to find out if the father of her child was alive or dead, while their baby fought his own battle on a ventilator. This was not fine. At 3 a.m., the elevator doors opened. Ji-won stepped out. He was covered in blood. Yuri shot to her feet. Are you hurt? Not my blood, he said. His voice was empty. He crossed the waiting room, and Yuri saw it. The death in his eyes. He'd killed people tonight. How many, she didn't know, but enough that it had changed something in him. Is it over? She asked. Yes. He sat down heavily. Park is dead. His second-in-command is dead. His family. He stopped. It's over. Yuri wanted to ask how many. Wanted to ask if he was okay. Wanted to ask if he regretted it. But she just sat beside him. Minho is doing better, she said instead. Dr. Shin thinks he'll be out of ICU tomorrow. Ji-won closed his eyes. Good. You're bleeding. She noticed a cut on his temple. It's nothing. Ji-won. I said it's nothing. He pulled away from her touch. Silence. Then quieter. I'm sorry. I need a minute. Yuri understood. Or at least she tried to. The engagement, she said after a while. Did you? Ji-won pulled out his phone. The message to Seo-yeon was still there, unsent. Do you want me to? He asked. Yuri looked at him. At this man who'd killed for her tonight. Who'd destroyed his enemies to keep her safe. Who'd walked through blood to get back to her. And she didn't know if she loved him, or feared him, or both. I don't know, she admitted. Ji-won smiled sadly. Fair enough. He set the phone down. They sat there until dawn, neither speaking, just existing in the strange space between war and peace, between broken and healing, between past and whatever future they might have. When the sun rose, Ji-won stood. I need to clean up, handle the fallout, make sure there are no loose ends. Okay, I'll be back this afternoon, to see Minho. He paused. If that's all right with you. Yuri nodded. He should know his father. Something flickered in Ji-won's eyes. Hope, maybe. Or maybe just exhaustion. Thank you, he said. Then he left. And Yuri was alone again. But this time, it felt different. This time, somewhere in the building, her son was breathing. This time, somewhere in the city, the man she'd loved was fighting his way back to her. This time, maybe, there was a chance. 2 weeks later, Minho was released from the hospital. Yuri moved into the Hanamdong apartment with him. True to his word, Ji-won kept his distance. He visited Minho every day, brought supplies, paid bills, made sure they had everything. But he never stayed long, never pushed, never asked for more than she was willing to give, which was mostly silence and grudging gratitude. Yuri watched him with their son. The way Ji-won held Minho so carefully, like he might break. The way he talked to him, telling him stories about constellations and physics and poetry. The way he looked at him with such fierce, protective love that it made her chest ache. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. Not the killer. Not the mob boss. Just Ji-won, father. And day by day, the walls she'd built started to crack. Day 15. Yuri answered the door to find Ji-won standing there with groceries and a stuffed bear. For Minho, he said, holding up the bear. He's 2 weeks old. He can't even hold it. Then it's for when he can. Yuri let him in. They'd developed a routine. Ji-won would come by around 6 p.m., help with dinner, spend an hour with Minho, then leave. But tonight, something was different. I need to tell you something, Ji-won said as they sat on the sofa, Minho sleeping in his proper crib. Not cardboard, but actual wood with a mobile that played soft music. Yuri tensed. What? Seo-yeon came by my office yesterday. Yuri's stomach dropped. Oh, she wanted to talk. About the engagement. About everything. And? Ji-won pulled out his phone. The message was still there, still unsent. I told her the truth, he said. About you. About Minho. About why I couldn't marry her. What did she say? That she respected my honesty. Ji-won's smile was bitter. And that her father was going to make my life hell for humiliating their family. Ji-won, it's fine. I expected it. He set the phone down. But there's something else. Yuri waited. She asked if I loved you. What did you say? Ji-won turned to look at her. I said yes, without hesitation, without doubt. Yes. Yuri's breath caught. She asked if you loved me back, Ji-won continued, and I told her I didn't know, that you had every reason not to, but that I was going to spend the rest of my life earning it anyway. Tears pricked Yuri's eyes. Ji-won, I'm not asking for an answer, he said quickly. I'm just telling you where I stand. I love you. I love our son. And I will wait as long as it takes for you to decide if there's any part of you that can forgive me. Yuri wiped at her eyes. I don't know if I can. I know. But I want to try. Ji-won went very still. What? I want to try, Yuri repeated. I'm not saying I trust you. I'm not saying we're together, but maybe we can figure out what co-parenting looks like. And maybe eventually. She couldn't finish, but Ji-won understood. That's enough, he said softly. That's more than I deserve. They sat there, and for the first time in a year, the silence between them wasn't heavy with regret. It was full of possibility. Day 17. Yuri woke up to the sound of Minho crying. She stumbled out of bed, still half asleep, and went to the nursery. Stopped in the doorway. Ji-won was there. He'd come by earlier to drop off formula, and apparently fallen asleep in the rocking chair beside the crib. Now he was awake, holding Minho, rocking him gently and humming something soft. Shh, it's okay, he murmured. Daddy's here. Daddy's got you. Yuri's heart cracked open. You're good with him, she said. Ji-won looked up, startled. I didn't mean to wake you. I heard him crying and... It's okay. Yuri came into the room. I'm glad you're here. Something shifted in Ji-won's expression. Yeah? Yeah. They stood there, watching Minho settle back to sleep. Yuri? Ji-won said quietly. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think... He hesitated. Do you think there's a world where we make this work? Where we're a family? Yuri thought about it. About all the pain. All the betrayal. All the reasons to say no. But also about this moment. About Ji-won holding their son. About the way he looked at her like she was his whole world. About the possibility of healing. I think, she said slowly, that if you're willing to fight for it. Maybe. Ji-won smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him in over a year. Then I'll fight, he said. For as long as it takes. Day 22. Everything fell apart. Yuri opened the door to find not Ji-won, but Minho. His face was grim. Where's Ji-won? Yuri asked, alarm rising. He's been taken. The world tilted. What? The Lee family. Minho's voice was tight. Seoyun's father. He found out about the engagement being broken. About you and the baby. They've declared Ji-won a traitor to the alliance. What does that mean? Minho met her eyes. It means they're going to kill him. Yuri's blood went cold. Where is he? Their compound in Gangbuk. But you can't. How do I get there? Miss Han, this isn't something you can... How do I get there? Minho stared at her. Then quietly. I'll drive you. To be continued. If you want to see what happens next. If you want to know if Yuri saves Ji-won. If you want to know if they become a real family. I need to know you're watching. Leave a comment saying part 2. Help this video reach 3,000 views. When we hit 20 comments asking for part 2 and 3K views, I'll drop the next episode immediately. The clock is ticking. Ji-won's life is on the line, and only you can save him. See you in part 2, if you want it badly enough. End of episode 01.